Everything Old is New Again, America's entertainment pop culture talk show.
It may well possess a rudimentary intelligence.
I'm trying to think, but nothing happens.
Felt a great disturbance in the force.
Hello, I'm Mr. Red.
Come on, bark like a dog for me.
Where's the goodies?
Leave the gun. Take the cannoli.
I bet you wouldn't have done anything like this if Mom and Dad were here.
You filthy criminal.
Excuse me while I whip this out.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Here are your hosts, Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
You know, you could talk your head off all day and never miss it. Too bad the closest you'll ever come to a brainstorm is a light drizzle. You know, you'd make a fortune renting your head out as a balloon. Last time I saw a mouth that big, it had a fish hook in it. Oh, yeah? You couldn't even count to 20 without taking off your shoes. You've got a great face for radio.
That last one is actually true for myself. Douglas Viviani here on Everything Old is New Again. Sans David Cohen could not make this tremendous event that we have today. We're going to have a lot of fun. Does that sound familiar? This week, we've got the privilege of spending some time with the most prolific and recognizable animated voiced artists in my book since Mel Blanc. For anyone watching cartoons in the 1990s, you know Rob Paulsen. You may not know the name, but you know the sound. You know the voices of Pinky from Pinky and the Brain, Yakko from the Animaniacs, Raphael, and later Donatello from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and over 1,000 more voices after winning an Emmy, Annie, Peabody Award. I would say the pinnacle of Rob's career. He was dealt with an unfair and serious turn of events where he suffered throat cancer. Mr. Paulsen survived that challenge and now tells his story in his memoir, Voice Lessons, a book that we're going to talk about for a moment here. He spoke about that back in October 9th, 2020 on Everything Old is New Again, and I'll tell you, it's a great inspirational book. We'll talk about that in a moment. The name of it is Voice Lessons. Besides that, though, the Animaniacs have returned to Hulu, the revival of Steven Spielberg's show that has new episodes airing some 30 years after the original debut. I believe it was 1993, and that's not all. He's touring now with a live show called Animaniacs in Concert, performing live music all over the country. Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again, Rob Paulsen.
Well, hello, Douglas. And firstly, thank you for lowering your entertainment standards on behalf of you and your audience to accommodate yours truly. I am thrilled to be back here, and actually, as they say at my age, I'm thrilled to be anywhere. So thanks for having me.
And speaking of that, it runs right into my first comment, because since the last time we were together, without going into details, I certainly also had a challenge, serious challenge with health and with a similar situation with respect to your throat cancer, and the book Voice Lessons, which I had read previously and I reread through different times that I had to go through to become healthy again, was an inspiration, because the attitude that you had was the same attitude that I had, where the people that were helping me were not the enemy, and you really brought that out. You also have a great attitude about life that kind of permeates that book. So in some way, I just wanted to say thank you, and also tell others that if there's a difficult time in life, certainly this book can be a resource, if that makes sense.
Well, thank you. My goodness, I truly, I don't know that you could have paid me a higher compliment, my friend. As you mentioned earlier, this is the second time I've had the privilege of speaking with you, and to know that my book, that all the heavy lifting of which was done by my co-writer Mike Fleeman, but to know that our book gave you some measure of comfort and maybe even inspired you a little bit is a compliment for which I can never appropriately thank you. So thank you very much. It's very kind of you.
My pleasure. It was just tell the truth here, and it's something that I would have said whether it had been on the show or not. I would have sent you a note, what have you. But I wanted to let the audience know. You know, again, we're going to talk about other things, but Voice Lessons is a book that you can get on Amazon. Of course, still now, and dive into it. It is well worth your time. Further, since we were here, the 1993 Animaniacs now are revived for 2 years, and for understanding, there's a third year that you've been renewed for. So a tough question here, but easy for you, I think. What is it about this show that makes it so special that we think and all, kind of including Steven Spielberg, dive into and enjoy so much? What makes it such a work of what would you say, a work of art that makes us want to enjoy this over and over and over again? And why is it coming back 30 years later stronger than ever?
Well, I think the short answer, and you've kind of already touched on it, is Steven Spielberg. Mr. Spielberg is the unquestioned, in my view, king of Hollywood, and the gentleman certainly knows what he's doing. The show was created originally by the genius of our friend Tom Ruegger many years ago, but it was Steven, along with Sam Register, the current head of Warner Brothers Animation, who said about, 4 years ago, hey, I reckon we should do this again. What do you guys think? And of course, the actors couldn't say yes quickly enough. But I think the fact that Mr. Spielberg saw how well Animaniacs was doing on not social media, but the new streaming sites. I think it was up on Netflix for a while, and it just exploded. And Mr. Spielberg saw that I was out doing a lot of personal appearances. I could still sing United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru. People would still do what you're doing, which is smiling. And the other actors, Muff and the Brain, Maurice LaMarche, and Jess Harnell, who was Wacko, and Tress MacNeille, Dot, are still working every day, can handle it. And it was he who made it happen. And I'll tell you what, the most glorious aspect of it now is that we have 2, sometimes 3 generations of fans who really love Animaniacs. We have people who are probably in their 40s or 50s now, who really dug it 25 years ago when they were in college or high school. And now they have their own children, and often their parents were turned on to Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain, just like my mom and dad used to watch Looney Tunes and the Flintstones and Rocky and Bullwinkle. And when I had children, we would all get a kick out of Kill the Wabbit, whatever. And now the same thing is happening with Animaniacs. The fan base is exponentially larger than the first go-around. Mr. Spielberg's genius, in part, I believe, is in hiring the right people and then turning them loose. And he did that with our showrunner, Wellesley Wild, and his right-hand man, Gabe Swar, and their incredible team of writers, many of whom grew up watching Animaniacs. So they totally get it. And I'll tell you what, you are very kind in highlighting a lot of creative endeavors on your show. But it's pretty difficult to find something that's comparable to this Animaniacs reboot. To have something that was an unqualified success 25 years ago, a generation ago, new episodes having not been created in the context of Pinky and the Brain or Animaniacs since 1999. And we have the show again on Hulu, and it's a hit. And it's an unqualified hit. It's really remarkable to find anything that, or sort of difficult, I should say, to find anything that's that remarkable in terms of shows that have been brought back with the original cast and a new crop of writers and a giant built-in audience. So again, the short answer is Steven Spielberg, and the moral is don't ever bet against Steven.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you that, and don't ever bet against yourself and the talent that's put into this show, because what happens is, and we see this in Everything Old is New Again, of course, that there are reboots and remakes and so forth, and even they try again to go back to the well, and if you don't have the talent in place, it's never going to work. So it just gels. Your cast and crew, I'm sure, gel like they did back in the day. And again, the new writers are some new blood, and I will talk about in another section. I've got a couple of clips I want to talk about the show and what it's like. But let's just, for the last couple of moments here, talk about that there's a live version, so to speak, a live concert, if we want to call it that, that you can see and look for the schedule at, before we run out of time, Animaniacslive.com, Animaniacslive.com. We're in a lot of these cities, so I'm going to throw this out there just for a moment, then we reiterate in a few, but January 21, in the Warner Theater in Washington, D.C., the Theater at Westbury in New York, January 22, which is where I will be seeing the show with my kids. The Wellmont Theater at Montclair, New Jersey. Fitzgerald Theater in St. Paul, Minnesota. Capitol Center in, and I'm going to butcher this, but I'll try it, in Manitowoc, Wisconsin. There we go. Thank you. Pabst Theater in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The Royal Oak Theater in Royal Oak, Michigan. The Agora Theater in Cleveland. We're in all those locations. So come on out and watch and get involved with this show because it is a lot of fun. I want to leave you for a moment here with a little bit of some song, and we'll talk about why we're talking about song and enjoying the Animaniacs live when we get back right here. And everything old is new again.
Everything old is new again. America's entertainment pop culture talk show with Douglas Viviani and David Cohen.
The students got together and they made Clem Cadiddlehopper a doctor of foolology. So at this time, we would like to introduce you now to our friend, Clem Cadiddlehopper. Well, my wife is a lovely lady. She's only 21. Of course, that's 150 for you and me.
Of course, because she's a dog, if you don't get the joke. Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. We are having some fun with Rob Paulsen talking about live Animaniacs in concert. Animaniacslive.com is the website to grab your tickets. That is Red Skelton. Goes all the way back. I remember visiting my grandfather back in the day. Maybe this was, I guess, early 70s, late 60s, watching Red Skelton. And for some reason, I think he kind of reverberates around Animaniacs a little bit, only in that I think he's an influence of yours in some way. Am I wrong, right, or where do I stand?
You are spot on. Clem Cadiddlehopper, Gertrude and Heathcliff, two seagulls. I used to love watching Red Skelton on his CBS show. Jonathan Winters, Red Skelton, Carol Burnett, Harvey Korman, Tim Conway, their whole group. The Pythons, Peter Sellers, I feel is my spirit animal. All those folks have had a profound influence, not only in yours truly, but in thousands of other performers. And boy, what a pleasure to be included on a show with a clip from Red Skelton. Thanks, man. You made my day.
We do different radio, that's for sure. Try to put some, fun back into the radio, and you're doing that with the Animaniacs on stage. You do it with your book. You do it with television. So we're crossing all genre here, and enjoying that. And I think one that you left out that also was a pleasure for me to watch as a kid on the D. Martin Roseanne on D. Martin show, Foster Brooks.
Not easy being
Foster
a
Brooks.
surgeon. You have to have nerves of steel. The brain is a very delicate organ. It has three main parts. It has the cerebrum and the cerebellum. And then there's one more, the, what the heck they call it? I'll know it when I see it.
There we go. Some old school entertainment there.
Oh, I love Foster Brooks. I make my friend Maurice LaMarche crack up all the time doing a bad impression of Foster Brooks. God, that guy just used to slay me. The Dean Martin roasts were with Rickles and Foster Brooks, and oh God, they were spectacular.
Great stuff and great characters, and you also mentioned Jonathan Winters, and I'm mentioning all of these because I want to try to dive into your brain a little bit here, into the way that you voice and or animate or create these characters, because of course, who was speaking about created characters and in their own way, and so. Was that something that was, when you grew up, was ingrained in the back of your mind that I want to do characters? Is it something that just came out from a mistake? Or how did you develop the skill to incorporate all these different voices into different looks and different characters?
Well, I think that it's not that unusual for a lot of people who end up doing what you or I do. I mean, we're in the same business. We're in the information and happy business. And I think what happens when you're a young performer is you do these characters, you sing, you dance, you do it simply because it makes your soul happy. Sometimes you find that it gets the attention of a girl or a boy that you're interested in. Other times you find that your parents really get a kick out of it, your aunts and uncles, and then you get to the place where they ask you, hey, go ahead and sing Amazing Grace again for everybody. And you think, oh my gosh, I've created a monster. I was no different. I think the thing that maybe made it a little more sort of was inculcated into yours truly was that I can almost feel a chemical sense of joy that happens when I nail something that really is exciting to me. And the fact is that it's addictive. I love laughing. We all do, and I know that's not anything unique, but I find that if I don't laugh a lot, I don't feel good. I mean, it's so strange, but it was something that from a very young age made itself clear to me. And then I would look for reasons to be funny. I would look for reasons to sing in character. I would look for reasons to emulate Red Skelton or whomever, and found out pretty quickly that I could rip off little bits and pieces of characters that I saw that were created by Jonathan Winters, Red Skelton, Peter Sellers, Peter Ustinov, you name it, and Johnny Carson. And I would rip off little bits and pieces and make them my own and tweak them and add dialects and characters. I would start to mess around with dialects even when they sucked. But I learned that I could create a character with a bad impression of someone else's perfect impression. That the fact that I wasn't perfect doing what Red Skelton had just done perfectly didn't matter. I could create my own stuff. That's what ended up taking a hold of me. I didn't really come to LA 40-odd years ago with the idea of being involved in animation. I came out here ostensibly to do live action and music. I was a singer first, and that's what I was doing. But then I lived that axiom, as many of us do, that opportunity and preparation equals luck. And so the fact that I had driven to LA from Michigan and loaded my car with all my stuff and took my relatively intact ego and drove out here and was blown away by all the people I met and surrounded myself with people who were so much more gifted than I. And I think that was one of the smartest things I could have ever done, was to not be dissuaded by how talented the people are whom I met out here, and to learn from them. But yeah, I was out doing my normal stuff, TV, movies, a lot of commercials, and the opportunity arose to read for animation. I jumped at it because I just wanted to work. Everybody likes cartoons. One thing led to another, and it became clear that I was getting pretty good at this. And so, as I just said, the opportunity and the preparation enabled me to get lucky. And here we are 30 years later, and now I just do animation, and I'm thrilled to death.
There also must be something where you've seen enough of these characters being developed by these individuals we talked about, and it sort of gets into your mind and your background, and you may not even know consciously what you're doing all the time when you try to tell a joke or when you try to inhabit a character. It's just like it's almost like the foundation's there, and you don't need to tap into it because automatically you are tapping into it, if that makes sense.
It does.
And I see you doing that real fun clip on Vanity Fair YouTube website where
thank you.
where you looked at a bunch of photographs, or not really photos, but characterizations of comic, if you will, animated characters, and then created voices right then and there for them. I had some fun listening to that, and I'm just wondering, have you done that before? Have you done it since? Is it just something that you had fun with? But the more larger picture is, wow, what a talent to be able to just take a look at these, I think it was 12 pictures, and just create 12 different characters on the spot right then and there.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, it's part of the way this particular gig works. That is to say, when we get an opportunity to audition, Doug, we get different angles of the characters to look at. We also get generally a script, or at least bits and pieces of the script, to let us know what these characters are about, how they interact with other characters in the script. And so the improv chops that I have come into play pretty regularly. And that particular thing with Vanity Fair was an awful lot of fun. That's what I like. I love the opportunity to play like that. And we do that at work all the time. And when you're surrounded by people like Maurice LaMarche and Tress MacNeille and Frank Welker and Peter Cullen and Billy West and John DiMaggio, and it's impossible to not be inspired. And they all do that. They all will take a look at something and they just start to riff. And one thing leads to another, and it ends up with a character. And if it works, and the writing is solid, and the character renderings work well, and the acting is where it needs to be, then sometimes you have characters that end up being like Bugs. Bugs is 80, and you and I can watch Bugs all damn day long, and be entertained. The fact that the people who created that stuff have been dead for years, notwithstanding. It's good stuff is good stuff. And when everybody is able to do their job at a high level, it doesn't matter that whether you're watching Beckett or whether you're watching One Froggy Evening. It's created at a very high level, and it is utterly timeless.
And it's amazing then to be able to, on another level, if you're a fan, even if you're not, don't get me wrong, but if you're a fan of what we've been talking about, Animaniacs Live makes it come alive. Of course, there's a different element because there's music, and we'll talk about that in the next section. But tell us what we're going to see on stage when you go.
Thank you. You're not going to see a tribute band. You're going to see the real McCoy, which really is kind of cool when you think about it, because for years, Warner Brothers has had Bugs on Broadway, where they'll do big cartoons, a giant screen, and a full orchestra will play Carl Stalling and Milt Franklin's incredible music with all these classic cartoons. But obviously, you're not, you're seeing essentially an evening's long worth of world-class talent in both the performers and on screen, but it's a tribute band. You can't see Mel Blanc and Carl Stalling. But with Animaniacs in concert, you can. You can see Rob Paulsen and Randy Rogel, who created and who wrote most of the songs people know from Animaniacs, including United States, Canada, Mexico, Panama, Haiti, Jamaica, Peru, and It's a Great Big Universe, and we're all really puny. We're just tiny little specks about the size of Mickey Rooney. And so when you can really see and hear the real guys, it's pretty cool. We have 2 hours of Randy's music. We tell stories about how the songs were created. We do probably 3 or 4 songs that never made it to the show, and you scratch your head because they're all spectacular. Now we've included Maurice LaMarche, so we have Pinky and the Brain along with us at these live shows that you were so kind to mention. And Randy has written music and proprietary bits for Pinky and the Brain right there. So when you're coming to hear all these songs, you hear brand new ones from Pinky and the Brain. And I guarantee you that the audience reflects the breadth of ages that you and I have touched on. There will be, at every one of the shows, there will be 8 and 9-year-olds, and there will be 70 and 75-year-olds. And it is the most gratifying thing in the world. And everyone, I guarantee it, will leave exhausted from laughing and singing. It's just spectacular. And Randy's music is from another planet. And now that Mr. Sondheim has left the building, I have to say Randy's got my vote for King of Lyrics. He's a remarkable talent.
Great stuff. Animaniacslive.com, Animaniacslive.com. We'll be back in a few minutes with Everything Old is New again with Rob Paulsen.
Norway and Sweden and Iceland and Finland.
Let's see if we can get a little bit of advice from the master himself.
I understand. Dr. Watson, I understand completely where you're from. This guy just bowls like that. I got to deal with it. He's an absolute nut. The Sherlock Holmes...
Don't listen to this guy.
The Sherlock Holmes, right. He's taking all the credit.
These
it's
are
unbelievable.
Legitimate. They're all legitimate, I'm telling you.
Sitting down, Pumpkinhead, I'll give you a little piece of advice. Get as far away from this gentleman as you can.
Oh, man. No, that was great. In fact, you guys are really good. Honestly, it was great. What you did was a blast. You guys should continue to do that. I don't know how often you do it on your show, but it's not only fun, but it's fun for the audience because you guys are good.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New again, getting the highest compliment you can get from Rob Paulsen here, who is, by the way, touring with the live Animaniacs in concert, Animaniacslive.com. They're in Westbury, they're in New Jersey, they're in Minnesota, they're in Wisconsin, they're in Ohio, all the locations that we are broadcasting to and more. It's worth the drive, even if you're not that close, because I'm telling you, I have a lot of fun at this show. But I have to tell you, back at show number 348 on Everything Old is New again, you can listen to iHeartRadio and listen to our old archived shows. But there, Rob, you have to tell you, have created a monster by giving us any bit of compliments whatsoever. And what we then did, it's very silly, but our audience really reacted to it exactly as you said they would. They enjoyed it. And what we did was then we took that sort of compliment and we said, let's, fictitiously speaking, we're going to bring in a young lady who is the artistic director of the Maplewood players in New Jersey and critique our characters as we go. So I wanted to play that for you for a few moments and then get you. We're actually going somewhere with this, believe it or not, and it does relate.
I'm so glad. That makes me so happy because you guys were good, and the audience loves that you let them in on something. They love that they get a chance to be exposed to something that's brand new, and it's fun for you, and it's clear that it's fun for you. That's why they like it.
Thank you. I'm going to torture everybody for about 2 minutes and 15 seconds of an older show, and I want to get a critique from Rob, and it will lead into something, believe it or not, that's relevant to the Animaniacs and AnimaniacsLive.com. AnimaniacsLive.com. While you're listening, pull it up on your computer and buy some tickets right now.
Well, for those of us who are not fluent in Spanish, there are subtitles. So
I'm going to be reading a book on the screen for 14 hours, you're telling me.
Okay, Michelle, we just heard a bit of Barbecue Guy and Fondue Guy, so what do you say?
Well, I would say that we have two levels of technique and skill here. I would say the person who portrayed the Barbecue Guy has a very, very advanced, maybe even an intrinsic understanding of the focus and concentration and emotional truth that you need to build when you're creating a character. I would say the other fellow that was playing the Fondue Guy, as you say, is a bit superficial, isn't really digging deep at character motivations. It just sounds like putting on the accoutrements or the trappings of a character without really having that subtext.
I'm going to go one more layer here because I see what you're saying here. How about a clip of Barbecue and Fondue Guys imitating each other? Let's see what the skill is like, the skill level of being able to carry the characters through something of that. Sound like to me that would be kind of difficult to do. Let's hear. Say it again. Toast it. What?
I'm gonna read it like Barbecue Guy though.
All right, here we go.
You ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Exactly.
Here we go.
So you take your 8 ounces of bittersweet chocolate, you chop it, you got a cup and a half, and then a cup of heavy cream right there. You got it. Follow along now. And the 3 tablespoons of bourbon. It's optional, but I say let's do it anyway.
I'm going to have to answer you like the Fondue Guy. Let's see what the Fondue Guy will respond.
Take a bag of...
I know what I...
Take a bag of marshmallows.
I now have a headache.
Then you basically put it on the floor, you stomp on it with both feet, throw it on a barbecue, and there you go.
That does not sound very appetizing to me. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, I'd like to have a glass of wine, some Beaujolais, and a little fondue, and that's all I would like to have.
Can I say that is the most intelligent statement I've ever heard you speak?
There we go. There, Michelle, what do you think?
I think the person who portrayed, he was originally the Barbecue Guy, and then he was, inhabiting the Fondue Guy. I just want to, did he go to Yale Drama or NYU School of Acting? Because I'm actually pretty blown away at how he can go back and forth from the characters. I'm stunned. I would suggest the other fellow who did the reverse Fondue to Barbecue maybe wants to come in on my Zoom acting coaching classes for a little refresher course.
Woo!
Sorry about that, but Rob Paulsen, the whole thing was inspired, if you will, by your compliments of us and pushing us through this, and we had a whole show of Michelle critiquing as if you did. We sort of took off from you, so we had some fun, and I wanted to ask you. Well, first of all, a reaction, why not? And then I have a question.
Sure. Oh, and my reaction is that it's great. I love that. But I love that Michelle got to use all these $100 words like intrinsic and accoutrement. I think that's pretty classy. The bottom line is, like I said earlier, I'm in the happy business. And when you guys started riffing, it just made me smile. I couldn't help it. I couldn't stop. I loved to hear what you were doing. I'm an audience member. You are offering us theater of the mind. You are offering us the opportunity to create in our minds what you two guys look like. Moreover, you're having a great time doing it. And you're not... One of the things that I liked about what I heard the first time you did it for me a couple years ago was that you were not afraid of being bad. What I mean by that is not that you were bad, but you weren't worried about it. And that's a huge part of the equation, especially when you're doing improv, which is what you were doing. You guys didn't have a script. You just started doing stuff. If you have a script, you might highlight bullet points and go around and, have a general idea of what you're doing, but you move forward. But you're not afraid to screw it up. And that's where the magic happens. Because if you're very tense, if you think, oh my God, I can't, that was stupid, that was really awful, you can't do that. And I read a quote once from Robert Redford, and it's true. You're only as good as you dare to be bad. And I think that is part and parcel of why you guys are entertaining when you do it. You've got a great sense of humor about it. You may take your work seriously, but you don't take that part of it seriously because you're there to enjoy it. If you enjoy it, the audience will too. And I'm telling you, man, you guys got something. So keep it up.
Thank you, Mr. Paulsen. I appreciate that. And I'll say Mr. because it comes back from an area of total respect, and I appreciate that. Reason why I go into all of that and where we're going with this is that on stage on AnimaniacsLive.com, you mentioned improv, but also certainly there's a script for the music that you're performing. But what happens there? You've got the music. What happens in between? Are you bringing the characters to light? Is there any improv? Is there a script? What are we diving into when we get into this theater?
Yes. In fact, although we're all there to see Warner Brothers stuff, people know many of the characters that I've done that are outside the realm of Warner Brothers, and we bring those guys up too, those critters up too. Carl Weezer from Jimmy Neutron shows up and has a great time with the audience. We do Q&A. So Raphael and Donatello of the Turtles show up. Obviously, Yakko and Pinky show up, and Dr. Scratch and Sniff from Animaniacs, all that as well. We also, when we bring Maurice LaMarche out, with Maurice, not only is he the brain, but he won back-to-back Primetime Emmys for his work on Futurama. He's Kif Kroker and Morbo the Newscaster, and Lure, and all these incredibly wonderful characters. He played the Harold Ramis character in Ghostbusters, and people just love that stuff because we have this breadth of characters between the two of us, and the audience, due to nice people like you, and social media and the internet, have done a little bit of homework. And so they come out there and find out that Maurice LaMarche has been Toucan Sam for 35 years. And that he he took over for Mel Blanc and did Foghorn Leghorn forever on recent Looney Tunes stuff. So all of that comes out. We improvise together, we play. As I said, Randy has written proprietary pieces that no one's ever heard until they come to the shows, specifically for not only Yakko to sing. We do brand new songs that people have never heard for Animaniacs, and a brand new song and a brand new 4 or 5 minute bit that Randy wrote just for the live show for Pinky and the Brain. And we play a lot. We make it a point to do Q&A, and inevitably, if somebody asks a question, it lights Mo and me and Randy up to go down a path that nobody ever sees coming, not unlike what you and Dave do. When you get that's exactly how improv happens. Somebody throws something out, and you start going, and then Carl starts riffing with Yakko and Pinky, and one thing leads to another, and it just becomes glorious. And I'm not afraid of screwing it up. Even if I screw it up, it turns out that it's funny, and you do it with commitment and joy, and it's entertaining. That's why everyone's there.
And are we going to then see, is it possible that Yakko would interact with Donatello or something like that, characters that they would never see, so to speak, or hear interacting together?
Absolutely. Carl will say, hey, Donatello, I heard that you're the genius turtle, but you're a lousy fighter. And Donatello says, let me tell you something. You come down and have a hot fudge marshmallow and tuna fish Doritos pizza, and you tell me how tough you can handle it. Yeah, all that stuff happens, and every show is a little bit different because the audience is different. We have a clear idea of what we're going to do, but we are not regimented to it. One show might be 1 hour and 58 minutes. The next show might be 2 hours and 7 minutes. It is always a blast.
AnimaniacsLive.com, AnimaniacsLive.com. We'll be back on Everything Old is New again for one more session with Rob Paulsen.
Burundi, Lesotho, and Malawi, Togo, the Spanish Sahara is gone.
You're listening to Everything Old is New again, including me, because we have the reboot. That is the Animaniacs, coming November 20th on Hulu.
People used to say they were better drummers than me, even in the Beatles. People can be real jerks.
You know, I was always more of a George guy anyway. How about I go back to being the rapier wit who carries this whole operation, and you go back to being the paint-by-numbers wannabe artiste? And while you're at it, why don't you cut your ear off? I've heard of abstract animation, but this is ridiculous.
Welcome back to Everything Old is New Again. That is the Animaniacs 2021. We have the voice of Yakko himself, Rob Paulsen here, and that may or may not translate because, and I'm going to expand upon that, that's just a peek into, if you haven't seen this show, how thoughtful it is. It is animation. That does not mean that it's only for children. There's reference there, of course, to the Beatles that my son would get, but there are some younger people that would not. There's certainly reference there to Picasso and to Salvatore Dali, I believe, and others in terms of artistic work. And you see the way they represent that in the Animaniacs on Hulu in that episode with the animation itself. There's a use of a computer animation program there that they're kind of breaking down the fourth wall and having us as the audience see this character just kind of have trouble with his writer and trying to move along. And it's so creative and so different. It does remind me of Bugs Bunny on some level. The early ones weren't necessarily just for children, and they had Humphrey Bogart and different other references and things. So we're here with Rob Paulsen, and I want to ask you, am I on the mark or not with respect to trying to describe Animaniacs 2021 that's on Hulu right now?
Yes, you are on the mark, and you've kind of said it in so many words, and the idea is not to condescend to the audience. The idea is whether or not the audience gets it, quote unquote, is not the issue. The issue is let's be clever, let's try to lampoon some sacred cows, and let's assume that the audience will get it, whether it's now or 20 years from now. And I don't think that that's dissimilar to the way Bugs and Rocky and Bullwinkle, the Flintstones, all of that stuff was written on several different levels. And that was the genius of Animaniacs in the first go-around, was it never condescended to the audience. And now, when I meet people in their 30s and 40s who liked it when they were in high school and college, or maybe even in junior high and didn't get certain cultural references, and now they get them. And their kids... most kids wouldn't know who Van Gogh is or who Salvador Dali is or who Picasso is by the time, maybe when they get in high school, but they could be watching Animaniacs now and just enjoy it. The parents can watch it, not want to blow their brains out because they know they're going to get something smart. And that is part and parcel of what makes Animaniacs or other shows that don't condescend to the audience successful, that they're built absolutely to appeal to people at different levels in their lives. And why not? Because we assume this stuff will be around forever, long after I'm gone.
And I'll tell you, it's so true, because I was watching that episode in particular with my son Leo's 9, my daughter Angelica's 12, and they were getting on a certain level. Now, Angelica's not a Beatles fan, but boy, did Leo get the reference immediately. He looked at me. We had just seen Get Back and so forth.
Oh, my God.
So,
on the Disney Plus, yeah.
So it was so relevant, and he was so excited. He was like, he kind of couldn't believe that his show was referencing something that Dad loves, and of course that Dad dragged Leo into loving. You know what I mean?
Isn't that the greatest? And you are absolutely pointing out what makes this so precious, is that it is a show that is by design for everyone. It is about watching the shows with your kids. It's about spending time together with your family. You know, when my son was little and Beavis and Butthead was around, there was about, I think he watched it, and this has nothing to do with Mike Judge, who's a brilliant guy. I love King of the Hill.
Right.
Great show. But Beavis and Butthead was kind of a one-note thing. It was, you know, they'd say boobs or they'd say fart or whatever. And my kid, after about his third or fourth episode, he would say, well, I know it's coming. And I'm kind of like, and he just sort of naturally lost interest in it. But that's not the case with a show like King of the Hill, or the show like Animaniacs, or the show like Rick and Morty, where you find all these little Easter eggs that continue to pop up and that you can watch them with your kids. Now, there are certain shows that are not appropriate, and I totally understand that as well. But Animaniacs, I think, walks a pretty good line of being able to be appropriate for young folks and old folks, and maybe pushing the envelope a little bit to get the older folks' attention. And you may even say, trust me, you'll understand this one day. But there are other things that they're for the kids to like, whether it's the music or dropping an anvil on Barney's head, why not? And I just love that you've discovered that with your children. It makes me so happy.
Yes, it was a pleasure for us to experience it, and where it of course you see it in one episode, then it inspires you for more and more episodes.
Yeah.
And further, I think also someone that watched this, so we referenced this in '93, probably watching with the children now, but even if they're not, when they see it a second time, if they are reinvigorated, now they're seeing it on a different level and seeing a different joke and getting something they didn't get previously, which is a lot of fun too, I'm sure. The other thing is that, again, we talked about this, but I have to have a Star Trek reference, so here we go. Every show is a Star Trek reference. Star Trek is one of the only shows that I know 30 years later with the original cast was still performing at a high level with the movies and so forth, and still doing well. And, again, back to Animaniacs, I challenge you. I'm sure there's one or two out there, but besides those two, I'm not sure the original cast is back, let's call it 20 to 30 years later, and doing something that is just as good, if not better, than the previous incarnation. So I don't know how that makes you feel, and if that makes any sense. And I know you're modest, but the idea is this show is just as good as ever.
Thank you. Again, it is a high praise coming from someone who's a professional. It means a lot to me coming from you. But I think Mr. Spielberg was very smart in hiring the same cast again. For obviously, I have vested interests. But if you've got the people who can do it, and it left a great taste in people's mouth, why not do it again that way? I think that the writing staff has absolutely nailed it. It's updated enough so that people can enjoy it in the a modern cultural perspective that's 25, 30 years later. But we all still get the joke. And I think you're right. It's pretty difficult to come up with another reboot who has done it with the same cast with a guy like Mr. Spielberg at that level again, and is enjoying unqualified success again. To hear from you that it's as good or better than the original is a pretty high bar, Doug. And it means a lot that you feel that way, so thank you.
Well, thank you for performing it and doing it, because it's bringing smiles, and it's a time when we do need some. And if you want more smiles in person, this is going to be kind of a once-in-a-lifetime kind of experience. Bring your kids and yourself. Enjoy the creators, if you will, the original cast of Animaniacs in Washington, D.C., Westbury, New York, Montclair, New Jersey, St. Paul, Minnesota, oh boy, Manitowoc, Wisconsin, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Royal Oak, Michigan, Cleveland, Ohio. Get on animaniacslive.com and you will get the information to buy your tickets. It must be rewarding when you bring pleasure to people at a live venue like you do, and to see the crowd reaction to a live performance that you don't necessarily get to see when you, of course, perform on the Animaniacs show. So tell us a smidge about what it's like what kind of reaction you're getting to the show.
Well, all of us, Maurice, Randy, and myself, all come from live performance backgrounds, and you're correct. We crack ourselves up all the time, and we know that we've got something good because we're just having a ball working with it. But you never know for sure until you hear feedback from the audience. And when you get a live show, and, when we do that Yakko's World with all the countries, that's our stairway to heaven. And it never ceases to make people just stand up and freak out. Because, look, I'm good at my job, but I live in Hollywood. You can throw a dart and hit somebody that can sing that. What you can't do is throw a dart and hit someone who can write that. And when you get 2 hours of Randy's music with just over and over and over and over again, I look out at the audience during the show and I see people just shaking their heads, going, it's just one after another after another. And it is so gratifying, so unbelievably gratifying. You see people singing the songs, and often you'll see people who are getting a little bit tearful because it's a deep connection to something that was very precious to them. And now they're there with their kids, or they're there with their children's grandparents. And it is a remarkable thing to behold. I'm just privileged to be there.
And it's likewise. Get those tickets, animaniacslive.com. Unfortunately, we're out of time. This has been an amazing time. And thank you so much, Rob Paulsen, spending so much time with us here on Everything Old is New Again. Good luck with the tour. Good luck with, of course, the continuation on Hulu of Animaniacs. And, of course, continue success with the book, Voice Lessons, on Amazon.com.
Well, thank you, my friend, and continued success for you and Dave and all your intrinsic fancy words and incorporated and accoutrement that was Michelle put out there.
Thank
you guys are killing it, and keep enjoying yourself. You're doing a great thing.
Thank you very much. All right, we'll be next week. Come on back for more pop culture entertainment on Everything Old is New Again. Thank you, Rob Paulsen.
When I grow up, I want to be a movie maker. I want to be a dancer.
Okay.
Bye, Everything Old is New Again, people. Bye, everything's gonna be old, new again.
Burundi, Lesotho, and Malawi, Togo, the Spanish Sahara is gone. Nigeria, Chad and Liberia, Egypt, Benin and Gabon, Tanzania, Somalia, Kenya and Mali, Sierra Leone and Algeria, Dahomey, Namibia, Senegal, Libya, Cameroon, Congo, Zaire, Ethiopia, Guinea-Bissau, Madagascar, Rwanda, Mayor and Cayman, Hong Kong, Abu Dhabi.